Hello.
Brian, how are you tonight?
I'm okay. How are you, Matthew?
Good. Thank you for taking some time and coming on.
Yeah, for sure. My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll just get right down to it. How you've been doing this
Sure.
whole pandemic?
Oh, I've actually been fine. I'm incredibly lucky
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. So, I still have work to do, so I'm busy
Hmm.
every day. I'm still getting paid,
Hmm.
which is ridiculously fabulous. And so, yeah, and I've been healthy. Our kids have been healthy. You know, uh, we've been okay. It's a crazy time, but my life has been okay. So I'm really, really, really counting my blessings.
Yeah, it's great. As you know, you were a professor. You're a professor at Columbia at my school, and this whole thing happened so fast. What was this transition like to go from regular classes to now we need to be on e-learning very, very soon?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the college did an interesting thing that was initially a little um, maybe perplexing, but I think was a smart move ultimately of actually giving us 2 weeks and then also taking spring break to really get going so that we haven't really started online instruction until this particular week.
Hmm.
Um, so there were certain, of the classes that I was teaching, one of them I could have gotten online in a week, I think pretty easily. But we were told to wait. So
Hmm.
it was a little like, oh, but wait, I can do this. We can just keep it going and
Hmm.
keep momentum. Um, but actually, it turned out to be, I think, be really wise to slow everybody down,
Hmm.
and mostly to give students a chance to, just settle themselves, get home if they were going home. There's been a lot of upheaval in student lives. So I think having us sort of hold back a little bit. And I wasn't. I mean, there are a lot of other faculty in other classes and other departments who were very ready to teach immediately, but we were told to wait. And I actually think initially it was kind of like, but allowing a little time for that to happen, I think that was a really wise decision.
Yeah.
So.
So I'm asking this now as a current acting student and also as an
Mm-hmm.
actor, coming from another actor who also teaches theater. How
Mm-hmm.
hard or different is it to actually teach theater online?
Yeah, well, weirdly enough, I sort of don't know because I mean the classes I'm teaching are not super performance based.
Okay.
So I'm one of the again like I was teaching an on camera class
Hmm.
that finished after 8 weeks. So we had 7 weeks done,
Hmm.
and so it was not hard to finish out what we needed to finish out. The other courses I'm teaching, one is a research course, so that is pretty easy to shift online.
Yeah.
Um, the other one is the BFA acting course, in which the students are devising
Hmm.
work, and we'd actually done a lot of practical work. So now it's a matter of sort of using the online space to structure
Yeah.
the performance and develop things. So I am not in a position where I'm teaching scene study.
Okay.
Um, I will say that I was in rehearsals for a show outside,
Hmm.
and we were a week in when everything sort of shut down, and the company made the wise decision to postpone. We were supposed to open the show in mid-April, but that's clearly not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I've actually been rehearsing over Zoom.
Hmm.
Um, so I have been working as an actor,
Hmm.
and I have some thoughts about that. But so I've been working, professionally, but not as a teacher in that area.
Yeah.
So
No,
you know
for
what I'm saying?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have friends all the time, and currently right now in rehearsals for shows,
Hmm.
and they're
Right.
on Zoom, and part of me kind of likes that, but part of me is a little confused of like how far can you go in a rehearsal process with just a camera, and that's it. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're using the time. I mean, what you can't do. I mean, there's a lot of things. First of all, you cannot physically inhabit in the way that you would if you were, walking and talking and all that kind of and moving around the space. And again, depending on the kind of show you're working on, I mean, some shows are incredibly physical and you just can't, you can't engage that way. The show I was in, obviously had physical components to it, but it was a fairly script-based work. So, but even still, after a week of rehearsal, we were on our feet and we're starting to move around and making decisions about, where your focus is on a line, like who you're looking at, right, and things like that. You can't do that on a Zoom rehearsal. Like, you just can't do it. So it's much more about the rhythm of the text, and listening and really hearing what the other actors are saying, like what has been written for them and how they are interpreting that work in sort of, in language and tonality and all that kind of stuff. So it's much more like a reader's theater experience than like a living theater experience, or an embodied, shall I say, fully embodied theater experience. So what we're actually doing is using this time right now. Gratefully enough, we're going to record the show. We're gonna rehearse and record the show, and then we have a really brilliant sound designer who's going to take the show and turn it into a 3-episode podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly, of the actual show. We're still committed to producing this show in real time and real space with real people in the room at some point in the future, but I think we'll be able to use the podcast and the recording to really, again, listen to the show and hear the rhythms of it, hear the dynamics of it, and have kind of lived in it, with each other as performers, so that when we actually do have time to get the show up on its feet, I think we'll only need, a week or two of rehearsal.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's our hope. So we're sort of trying to go like, oh, okay, well, this is what we can do right now, and we're going to do that. We'll try to get the work out there and the story out there and the performances out there in audio land. But then we do want to do the show. But I do think it's going to help us in the rehearsal process for the live show once we get to do that.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
It feels like almost like a blueprint of sorts for as an actor, as a character, and once you guys do come back on your feet, whenever that is, you can grow from it more, I think.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to put it. Thank you, as a blueprint for like a live performance of the show. That's cool. Yeah. I'll buy that.
No problem. So I know that you are also an executive producer of the Growing Voices podcast, a very, very lovely podcast. Shout out to them.
Thank you.
My question is, once this is all over for kids, do you see it very hard for them to kind of adjust back to a normal education?
No.
No? Oh,
Not at all.
Why do you think that?
I really don't. I think people are going to be really happy to be in the room with each other and realize what a blessing and privilege that is to have that time set aside in our lives to just be in the room and work on stuff. Yeah. It's funny. I haven't done a ton of Zooming with students, but when I have, it's been really, really nice to see faces.
Yeah.
It's been really nice. So, and I'll be doing a little bit more of it this week, Thursday mostly. It's just been great. Like, it's just, I realized how much how much I enjoy the faces of students, right, and the people that you're working with in the room. It's great.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, who knows? I actually just got a text from, I have friends of mine in South Korea who have, of course, gone through some of the pandemic ahead of us and in much better and much more organized cultural and governmental response to the pandemic than we are going through. But they are not. Well, they're open now at school, but only in classes of 10 or less. So they're still online for another couple of weeks until they go into larger classes. So they're already in classes of 10 students or less. And if people have symptoms, of course, they obviously don't come in. But they're already, back. And my friend Young Hoon, who texted me tonight just to see how I was doing, said it was really nice to have students back in the building and in the room. So
that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I asked because as the oldest of four, there's like a really weird generation gap. You have my sister and I who are both in college, and we are just dying to see our friends, our professors, our colleagues face to face. Where in other ways, I have my two little brothers who are both in high school, and they are loving this. They can get up anytime they want, can get on their laptop, they can watch a video, send a couple sentences, and they get a grade. Like, they love that. And that's why I was very curious. Like, my brother, my middle brother, he's graduating high school, so he thinks this is like the perfect time for him just to do whatever he wants. Clearly is not, but that's his own opinion. So I'm very curious to see what that would be like when he goes to college in the fall, after this he calls it a mini vacation per se.
Right. Well, what's he going to study?
That's a great question.
And that's cool. Like, he's 18, he doesn't need to know yet.
Yeah.
But because I have three children in university right now, right, and one of them is in a fine arts program, so she's in very small classes and is missing, working with the faculty and working with the other students. And our two sons are in courses that tend to be larger, and they do miss the face-to-face, but they don't have the same kind of interaction with their faculty and with other students in the room like you do. Yeah. In an acting class, or in any of the classes really at Columbia, where we're pretty involved with each other, and so they're sort of like, oh, it's cool, like they're getting their work done, and they miss certain things, but they're also it's a very different kind of experience, So if your brother is going to a school, like a state school, and is going to study, biology or something like that, he's going to be in classes with 300 people. There's not that much interaction rooms anyway.
Yeah.
So, the online space can be effective for those classes in ways that it's much harder to be, in an acting class, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep you updated on the adventures of the mini shoe on this podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to know. It's always good to know. I'm always curious. Yeah. For sure.
We're different shoe fighters. He loves his tablet and laptop, so I think he's so that's probably why he's been enjoying this, but who knows. So I'm curious now. I've been going to these, or attending or watching these Steppenwolf web conferences they've been doing the last couple of weeks, and they had Anna Shapiro and Ian Bradford last week, and they were asked, what do you think the culture of theater or the reception of theater is going to be like when this is all over? And I forgot, I think one of them did say the appetite for theater is going to be very rich and people want to come back to it, which I agree. Where do you think the culture and appetite of theater is going to be like when this is all over?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny, I'm on the board, the executive board of the Sarah Siddon Society. She was an actress, an English actress of the 1700s and early 1800s. And the Siddon Society gives out scholarship money to students in the major acting schools in Chicago. So that's really one of the reasons I'm on the board. It's a Columbia College faculty person. We give a chunk of money to different students every year through Sarah Siddon. So anyway, but they're really a theater appreciation organization in many ways, in addition to being supportive of students. And so they go and see a lot of shows as groups, right?
Yeah.
So I organized, for example, this winter in January, I guess? Maybe January, yeah. I organized a group to go to East Theater to see a show, because most of the theaters they go to are fairly large, and they don't often go to the smaller option theaters. So I organized that. It was a really great event. But these are people who love to go see theater, right?
Yeah.
And they are dying to go see some theater. Like, they are so upset that they cannot see anything, and that things that they had book tickets for have been canceled, and that some of their subscription have been canceled. They really want to get back in the room, and it was just really nice to be in a meeting, with people who are not theater makers, right?
Yeah.
All saying that, like, we just want to go see a show. So that was really beautiful. It was really touching today when I heard that from these people. Of course, they are theater geek, right? Theater geek in the kind of sense of geek. But yeah, that's where they're at. I do. I think restaurants are going to fill up. I think parks are going to fill up. I think baseball diamonds are going to fill up, and soccer fields. And I think people are going to really want to be around each other when we can be.
Yeah, I obviously can't wait for that. I think what's been very interesting about this pandemic is, I think the term I would use to describe the arts is, like you said, very devising. It's like every day I go on social media or whatever, and I see celebrities doing stuff with their theaters, or theater companies allowing free performances, or I have a group of my friends, we do stage readings. How would you describe the world of theater? Would you say it's devised, or would you say it's something else?
I mean, devising is a funny word, and I mean, all performance is ultimately devised. I mean, even if you have a script that you follow to the letter, you still have to invent the actual performance, right? In many ways, I mean, it is different if you're developing the narrative, or if it's not narrative based, the progression, right, through material and all that kind of stuff. It is different than if you're working from an existing text, but there's still a lot of creative work that goes into even the interpretation of a show, right? So the skills get heightened in certain ways. If there's no text to begin with, the compositional skills get heightened in different ways. And I'm working on that with the BFA acting students, right, who are devising a show. Some of which is work they've written, some of which are scenes that they're pulling in, but then we're shifting the context of in certain ways, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I think it's funny, because I actually had another conversation today with somebody who's a faculty member, with Tom Fraderigo, who's faculty in the cinema arts department. And he and I have set up the whole collaboration that we do with cinema arts students and theater students. And they've of course had to shut down production, right, for their students they can't shoot film right now in the collaborations that they're used to doing. So he's devised some really interesting assignments for students. For example, like, do a scene as if it's being done over the phone, right? Like it's a phone conversation.
Yeah.
Which, you see or split screen, right? Like you see in Brian De Palma films or things like that. So it's like you can't get the people in the room together, but you can still have people engage with each other and talk to each other. You just have to find a different way of managing the story, the visual storytelling, right? So how information is being relayed between people, and how people are navigating and interacting across space and time. And so he's doing it like he's given them these sort of problems to solve that are really interesting. And I was, there's a lovely theater company in England who's done a tabletop Shakespeare thing. They do the entire canon, every single play of Shakespeare, with one actor, a tabletop, and household objects, right?
Very cool.
And yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to think of it. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name the intercompany right now. I want to say it's Elevator Repair Service, but that's a New York company. Anyway, if you look up Tabletop Shakespeare, you can find it. They're beautiful. They tell each play in about 45 minutes to an hour. It's just one actor, a tabletop, and these objects. And there are a couple of stories that I'm interested in working on that I'm interested in working on that way, and will probably work on this summer with a friend of mine who's a cinematographer. And I'll bring in an actor and a camera and a voiceover and a bunch of objects, and we'll shoot these things as sort of tabletop animations, tabletop performances, but they'll have live hands in manipulating objects and stuff. And so again, I think exactly like you just got to devise. Okay, you cannot gather in a room, right? You cannot gather a large collaborative group to make work. You can maybe get 3 people in a room together, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
As long as they're 6 feet apart.
Yep, exactly. Right? Yeah, totally. Which we could totally do. Yeah. So we get the right lens on the camera, can easily be 6 feet apart. So it's that kind of thing where you're just going like, okay, we have to tell the story in a different way than we're used to doing, and that's a beautiful, creative problem to think about. It's not the same thing as having 200 people in a room experiencing a play, right? It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But so you can't go, oh, this is a replacement for the experience of theater or the experience of sport, right? Like it's in 20,000 people in a baseball stadium or a soccer pitch or whatever. That is a real experience that you cannot replicate on video. But you've got to figure out a way to keep what you love to do alive, and so you just do that. And so I'm curious about that. So yeah, the podcast thing I think is really brilliant. And then I think the use of Zoom. I'm expecting there to be a lot of split screen TV and split screen movies in the next 2 years, because I've spent hours on Zoom meetings, even just this week. Like in the last week, I've probably spent 12 hours on Zoom, which is way too much. It's really annoying. But there is something really fascinating about learning how to use that vehicle. You like when the green box lights up and you're actually talking, and then like, okay, I'm going to talk for a little while of it. It's just a really interesting. It's interesting. We're creative people, and so we're trying to figure out how the hell this stuff works. And so yeah, I think that's kind of like okay, and again, that is such a luxury. Like I'm not trying to put food on the table. I'm not dealing with a sick relative. We have to really be very conscious of, how how much inequality is being exposed once again in this country, in this pandemic, right? So 70% of the deaths, right, in Chicago are African American. That is a crime, right? Yeah. So we must be, it's just like anytime I think about however I'm dealing with this thing, I realize like there are much more difficult situations out there that are being dealt with, who may not have the luxury of being creative in this way about what we're going through, or being creative in other ways, of course, right? Yeah. So it's just like the perspective of what is happening right now is really you just have to keep refreshing your awareness of the larger context within which this is happening. But at the same time, I am very interested in how we are solving some of the issues creatively, artistically creatively, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So besides the work, besides the constant Zooms, have you been finding anything to at least entertain yourself during this pandemic?
Well, we have 2 cats.
Oh, okay.
So they're fun, and they're pretty young. I play time with them twice a day.
Yeah.
I have been walking a lot and doing yoga every day. There's a lot of really great stuff on stupid Netflix and Amazon and Canopy, and so we've been watching stuff, which is good. We've been Skyping with our children. Yeah, social media, Instagram and stuff. It's all fine. We've actually, been okay.
That's great.
That way, yeah. How about you? What are you doing?
I have a podcast.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Are you doing this every night?
That's the goal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was going to be limited, and it still is, but until this pandemic is over, which the shutdown says till the 30th. So, like I said in one episode, you have 30 episodes coming your way, aka 30 different episodes every day. They've been very fun. I call them little therapy sessions, I would say.
Yeah, I bet. Like, what kind of different questions are you asking as you get farther into the discussion? I'm curious.
It's been very interesting. When I first started, I tried to find a theme with the pandemic. So I had I had a friend who is involved with a theater company, and they are doing a Zoom show. So they're doing like readings from Zoom, and they're going to put it as a whole one act play festival. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Talk about how social media is like during a pandemic. And then I had a friend who him and we've been through therapy together, and we talked about how has therapy been helping for us, and so that's been fun. And I mean, I had a teacher on, a good friend of mine in Minnesota who is teaching third graders English, and so this is his first time being a teacher, and he has to go through an e-learning process. So I've been finding some themes to look at, but otherwise everyone has a different opinion and a different voice and a different story regarding this. So I'm just curious to get an opinion, and some of them have been more conversational, some of them have been more informational, but it's different every night.
Oh, cool. Well, that sounds like what a great just what a great journey to be on, right?
Yeah.
Of being essentially a listener, but also a bit of a provocateur in the not like a shit disturber, pardon my language, provocateur necessarily, or maybe that too, but just somebody who's provoking a dialogue with people. Cool.
It's been fun.
Beautiful.
There we go. Brian, I can't imagine another teacher I want to talk to right now during a pandemic, so thank you.
That's funny.
Thank you again for participating and spending some time to come on. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for calling me. It's nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
And it was nice to have a chat with you, for sure.
Yeah. Of course, if you and Stephanie need anything, let me know, and I will drop it off 6 feet away from you guys.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Nope.
All right.
All right. You take care,
All right.
Brian.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for listening to this episode of You Have a Minute, a daily isolated podcast. My thanks to Brian Shaw for coming on the program and taking some time to talk to me. He was my professor in two of my classes I had at Columbia. And I learned some good stuff from him in class and on this episode. My thanks goes out to all the teachers who have been, working their butts off for not just for my college, but for any college, high school, elementary, graduate school, any kind. I speak for a lot of people when I say we appreciate everything you have done. And as always, stay inside, isolate yourself, wash your hands, let people who need the masks and gloves more have them, and I will see you soon.